Hi, everyone. My name is Regina Fodden. I'm from historic St. Mary City in Southern Maryland, and you're here to see William Polly, who's down on the other side of the country in Texas. And so you have his bio in the program, so I don't want to take any more of your time and just let William get started. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm William Polly. I work as an educator at the Levi Jordan State Historic Site as well as the Varner Hogg State Historic Site. But today I'll be focusing mainly on the Levi Jordan. So I'm going to share my screen so I can jump right into the slideshow. So what I'm going to be explaining today is that we're trying to create inclusion at our historic site. So the Texas Historical Commission hasn't had these two historic sites long. They only had them for around, I want to say 13 years. So we're still fairly new, trying to work out some programming at the sites, but we're really trying to not change the narrative, but expand on it. So I'm going to explain to you a little bit how we're trying to do that today. Very little has been done to address the legacy of slavery and its meaning in contemporary life. Stephen F. Austin played a prominent role in implementing slavery in Texas. Brazoria County and the surrounding areas were primary locations for human trafficking and facilitating enslavement of Black and Indigenous bodies. And yet there is little understanding of the slave trade, enslavement, or the longstanding effort to sustain a racial hierarchy that enslavement has created. Ironically, an alternative narrative has emerged that celebrates and even perpetuates the antebellum era. Our history of racial injustice is often avoided, creating a racial divide which is evident today covertly and overtly. The enslavement of Black and Indigenous peoples in the United States lasted 2 centuries and has created a complex legal, economic, and social infrastructure that can be seen today. The reality of American slavery was brutal and barbaric. The myth of race inferiority is persistent as common justification for the system's continuation. We see it today in the museum industry. So without further ado, I'll introduce our two sites. We have the Levi Jordan Plantation, as well as the Varner Hogg Plantation. And typically when you do a Google search or you look us up, this is what you will see, the main houses that the enslaved bodies created. So we're down in Texas, like Regina was telling you guys. County, actually, which was the first capital of Texas. Austin settled here first, and it was known as the Texas Sugar Bowl. Despite what they teach us, Texas was really one of the last frontiers for slavery. There were 63 plantations in Brazoria County alone. So it was a booming industry down here for the Texans. It really drove their whole economy. There weren't many enslavers in Texas with more than 100 slaves, but both of our sites actually owned over 100 slaves. So the Levi Jordan Plantation at its peak owned, I want to say, 142 enslaved persons, and the Varner Hogg Plantation owned 160. So there were a lot of bodies down here that were enslaved, unfortunately. Like I said, they were both a part of Stephen F. Austin's original 300. So if you didn't know about his plan that he implemented in being a part of the original 300, all you had to do to get a whole league of land basically was to be a white male, convert to Catholicism, and keep the land for 10 years and learn Spanish. And because Texas was under Mexico's rule at the time, Stephen F. Austin has to actually lobbied for Texas to bring slaves into Texas. So like I said, all you had to do was be a white male, convert to Catholicism, keep the land for 10 years, and you can get a whole league of land, which was 4,428 acres. Wow. The two sites, they hold similar stories, but they are different as well. So with Levi Jordan, the descendant family actually stayed in the home until around 1979. So it was always a plantation. It never was anything else but a plantation. There was over 500,000 artifacts found on site. And like I said, it's a stigma still in the African-American community because the descendant family stayed there until 1979, and it has always been a plantation. With Varner Hogg Plantation, it's over 300 years of of site history present. So it started with the Karankawa indigenous tribes, and it transferred over to Martin Varner, who was actually a part of Stephen F. Austin's original 300. He kept the land for 10 years, sold it to the Patton family. So they came around 1834. They kept that land until emancipation, actually. After emancipation, the Texas land took the land over and turned it to convict leasing. And then after they gave out 604 lashes to a convict, they were deemed unacceptable, and they had their doors. So the land was then sold to Governor Hogg, who was actually the first governor of Texas. So they like to focus now on mainly the 1920s era and the Hogg era, and it's been focused basically on the white owner experience instead of the people who built all of the architecture for the land. So what we're doing now, we're trying to expand this narrative, is trying to go for Sankofa, which is, it is not a taboo to take it, to go back and what you forgot. So Sankofa is what we're really trying to go for with our new mission for our historic sites. To dive a little deeper into the Levi Jordan Plantation, this land was also settled by the Karankawa indigenous peoples, but they were moved by Stephen F. Austin's original 300 as well. Samuel May Williams actually stayed on the land first, and then around 1848, he sold the land to Levi Jordan, who kept the land until 1864, when the slaves were emancipated. Oh, I'm sorry, I had to. So Levi Jordan, it's important to note that he actually had one of the largest sugar processing centers or mills in Texas, but he did not produce the most sugar. So we're still trying to figure out what he actually was using his enslaved population for, because like I said, he was holding 142 people in bondage, but he did not produce, and very few enslavers actually held over 100 slaves. So he was on the top end of holding bodies, and he had the largest sugar mill, but he did not produce the most sugar. So we're still trying to figure out what he was actually using his enslaved population for. Was he a trafficker, or did he just fail to produce more sugar? So the land at Levi Jordan is also very interesting because we have a very large descendant population that we're familiar with from both sides of the spectrum. So we actually have descendants from the Levi Jordan family that we're still in contact with, as well as people like the Mack family, who were actually enslaved under the Levi Jordan family. So we've been constantly trying to figure out how we can get in touch or get in better communication with them to start collecting oral histories from them. And we have already started, but we're still in that process. So it's the stigma that has been left in the community is something we're still trying to get over, because like I said, we have just received, we haven't had the land since, we only received the land in 2008. I'm sorry, I'm studying a little bit about this stuff, but as you can see, the investments that were made and the revenue created by the enslaved population, it just blows my mind, because the enslaved bodies couldn't get any of this profit. So the fact that they produced all of this and they were considered inferior is what always baffles me. So with expanding the narrative, we want to use our sites to tell stories that from everyone who might have called this space home. So not just from the white enslaver perspective, but from the people who actually worked and lived on the plantation as well, because it was a story of resilience out there, despite what we may think or despite what has been taught. So there was a great sense of community, and we still see it today. Like I said, we have a very large descendant group or body out here in Brazoria County still. So just getting in touch and getting in tap with them is something that we have been really working towards this year. This is actually my first year working in historic preservation, so it's still a lot of things I'm learning. But like I said, we've been reaching out to the churches in the area that we know um, have been branches that have broke off from Levi Jordan. So people who were enslaved at the Levi Jordan plantation actually started churches not even 10 minutes away. So, and they're still open. So we've been really reaching out, trying to get those stories told. We actually have a Descendants project going on right now too. We just got some new scanning equipment. So it gives the descendants opportunities to actually bring artifacts in from their family, get them scanned, get them digitized, and they can take their artifacts back that same day. So we don't have to keep anything. And we actually want them to help us tell that story because, like I said, history depends on perspective. So if you don't have the right perspective telling the story, then the story is going to be all wrong. So we want to make sure that our descendants are directly involved in telling this story because it is their story. So we're trying to work and update existing exhibit language. So in the past, a lot of people use the term slaves when the correct term should be enslaved because slaves kind of dehumanizes us. Well, them, it makes them seem as if they were only slaves and they were really architects, tanners, engineers. They were anything you needed to the site. So to deem them as just slaves is something we're working to get past. Even at our sites like Varner, Hogg, and Levi Jordan, there were very specialized work going on. They never left the community. They got everything they needed done out here, and that's just what it was. So to just deem them as slaves is pretty dehumanizing. And we're also trying to promote events that challenge existing perceptions. So our target audience is the youth. So we want to have new events. In the past, we've had pretty insensitive events that really didn't fall in line with our mission. So that's what we're gearing towards is trying to get a mission, to get a plan, and stick to that. And I think telling the story of the people who lived and work here is our new mission. So we're going to do that by having youth events, performance nights, lecture series, arts, and even overnight tours. And I'm going to tell you how we're going to shortly. But right now, I'm going to speak on our strengths, challenges, opportunities that we do have right now currently. So as a strength, what we do have are it's a unique story that many people don't know about, but we're all connected to it. So the geographic location, we're about 45 minutes outside of Houston. I want to say an hour outside of Galveston as well too. So a lot of our tourists go from Houston to Galveston and they come back through and stop with us. So we're really in the perfect location for our two sites. Our opportunity to engage diverse audiences, a significant new museum experience in a state and region that prides itself on history, and tremendous opportunities to engage visitors outside the museum shell. Some of the challenges we do have is a lack of diversity. I want to say I'm the first African-American professional that has been hired in the last 20 years. A lack of knowledge, false narratives, racially insensitive events. House Bill 3979, if you guys are familiar with that. We actually focus too much on trying to change others instead of ourselves. So it's a lot of work that we still need to do with our exhibit spaces, with our leadership, and things we need to change first before we can try to ask the public to change. Our leadership systems do not always serve as inclusive models. So we see it in our leadership. It's still pretty much the museum industry. I want to say is 2% African American. So when we get a more diverse workforce, I feel more stories will come out of this work. And we're really trying to build revenue strategies right now because funding is not always our strong suit. So and we're telling an interesting story. So getting people interested in that story is something we're working towards. I'm sorry for the opportunities we do have. We can increase diversity of staff. We can upgrade our exhibit spaces, attract and engage with new visitors, authentic community engagement. So, like I said, I haven't worked very long as a historic preservationist, but I am a community developer. So that is what I got my master's in, and that is what I pride myself in doing, is really getting out and doing work in the community. So, uh, create resources generated from work, become an example to other institutions who may feel uncomfortable providing inclusion, and use our sites as spots of restorative justice. So we all know these sites were plantations, and we know what plantations were used for. But what we use this land for today can judge how we start to look at this land. So it's a lot of pain that happened out here, but like I said, if we turn our spots to restorative justice locations, then a lot of healing can be done with our plantations as well. So that is what we're really trying to get towards in the future. So, and with that, one of our first programs we're going to offer at Levi Jordan is teaching difficult topics. So I've been listening to the podcast from Hassan. So it was him speak this morning, and I actually wanted to do this because of his podcast, Teaching Difficult Topics. So what we're going to do is going to make a more immersive experience when we do teach our difficult topics. So our programs will be offered in the summertime because our target audience is going to be teachers, but it won't be limited to teachers only. So we really want to target all professionals, educators, law enforcement, psychologists, lawyers, just anything, because like I said, we're all connected in this story. So the more we understand about slavery and its history and how it's still used today in contemporary life, is a way we can create a better society. So what we will do is offer a 1-week full immersive program where professionals can stay on site and learn how to confront difficult topics they may face in the classroom or in life. Our 4 courses will include improving engagement, deconstructing unconscious bias, teaching empowerment and legacy, and creating an inclusive climate. So I know you may be asking, how are we going to get all of these professionals out on our site? How are we going to get them to want to stay there? But we actually have big plans for the future of Levi. So our new infrastructure that we're building on the land currently is an archaeology lab, a learning center, and a museum that focuses on the lives of the enslaved in Texas and the African-American experience in America. So phase 1, which is being completed and should be done, I want to say by middle to late October this year, is our archaeology lab, which will hold an observation room for visitors, where you can actually see, archaeologists at work and see what an archaeologist actually does, because a lot of people have never spoken to an archaeologist or has an idea what an archaeologist actually does. They just think of Indiana Jones. So we're trying to break that myth as well. So we're going to show you really the inner workings of how museums work. So like I said, we're going to have an observation room for the visitors, a collections facility, a visitor center in the archaeology lab until our museum space is built, as well as office spaces for the people who may work there. We also will have a learning center, which will hold 8 bedroom spaces with their own restroom, a classroom space. And so phase 2 will be our museum space. And that phase 2 will probably happen, I want to say, in the next 2 to 3 years. But first, we're just going with phase 1 to see how successful we are with our new infrastructure. So like I said, we will have an archaeology lab, and it will hold a collection storage room. You can see it right here. A processing center, which will actually be the observation room, the lobby, a supply room, receiving room for those descendants who may want to drop off artifacts and can't stay. So we'll have a receiving room for them as well too, an office space, and it's a really, it looks pretty small on the picture, but it's really a nice space. It's a nice size. So we really want to get you guys out so you can see what we're doing down here in Texas. And we also will have a learning center that, like I said, will have 8 bedroom spaces, 8 bathroom spaces, a classroom, a kitchen space, as well as a laundry room. So it's very hard to find lodging down here in West Columbia. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the area, but it's not a big city. So like I said, Houston is our largest city next to us, as well as Galveston. But West Columbia doesn't have a lot of lodging there. So we're trying to make it as easy as possible for professionals to get out to our site and get immersive with our site and actually want to learn the history and stay. So we're not just giving them regular rooms; we're giving them like hotel style rooms. So it's going to be a great immersive experience. And like I said, phase two will be the museum space. So right now, that's not the official design, but that's the design we're thinking of going with for the museum. And it will basically give you a whole introduction of enslavement. It will talk about slavery and its legacy, the Levi Jordan Plantation, fight for civil rights and equality, Reconstruction and Jim Crow. And I'll also have a community flex space where we can hold conferences as well as an outdoor theater. So um, they're very large plans for Levi Jordan, and we're hoping that they're coming to fruition, and we're hoping that we can get a lot of you guys out here from this conference. So thank you for your time. Now open for questions. Let me stop sharing my screen. Oh,
And I'm muted. Sorry, I was saying Joe McGill put a note in the chat about having a sleepover, so that'll help bring some awareness to your site.
definitely, please come on out and join us. So.
Okay, so I don't see any questions at the moment, but if you don't mind, I might ask you a couple.
Sure.
Just before we went live, I was asking a little bit about the House bill, because I'm sorry, I'm not as familiar with it as certainly you are, and maybe some of the audience isn't as well. And so explain what it is and what the impact might be. And they said people are looking at the plans, so they're interested. So we have a couple questions. I said you might want to just, are the plans for the museum on your website?
The plans for the Levi Jordan Museum is not on our website just yet, but they're going up there shortly. So,
okay. And is the town of Austin named after the enslaver?
Yes, it is actually named after Stephen F. Austin. So, and that is also the capital of Texas now. So,
okay. All right. Well, I said, if you don't mind talking a little bit about House bill, that might generate some conversation as well.
Sure. So with the new House bill that has just been released out in Texas, it might cause us some problems with telling that story of slavery and how it is actually evident in contemporary life. So we're still trying to find ways to work around the checks that they're trying to put on us, basically for telling the story of enslavement and slavery. So we work on two plantations. It's kind of hard to not talk about slavery when it's all around us. So I don't know. Really, it's like I said, it's a pretty vague bill right now. So it's a lot of loopholes in it. You really just can't. It seems like right now you really just can't pick a side. You just have to be open to both sides and both perspectives. So like I said, that's our whole mission this year. We're not really trying to change the narrative. We're just trying to expand on it. So we're still going to tell the story of the Patton family, the Hogg family, the Levi Jordan family, but we're also going to tell the story of the people who were enslaved there as well. So.
Okay. And so what has your experience been like, if you don't mind? You said you were the first African-American hired in 20 years, which was obviously a choice on the part of the organization, but any insights or anything you'd be willing to share about that experience?
Sure. So it's an interesting experience every day. I never go home without learning anything new every day. So I really love that about the job. But like any other job, you have your good days, you have your bad days. So, but like overall, it's been truly a great experience. Like I said, it was a lot that I thought I knew, but I really didn't know. So it's just opened my eyes to a bigger world out there, and it's made me appreciate the sacrifices of my ancestors. So honestly. And I've really been finding out even more things about my personal life than I ever have since I got this job. So I don't want to say I am, but the way the research has been going, I've been looking up my family's history, and I actually might be connected to the Levi Jordan site through my grandfather. So like I said, it was things I never would have found out without this job. So about myself and my family. So um, I've been really enjoying it so far, and I'm looking forward to seeing how far I can go in historic preservation. So I've been loving it.
Okay. All right. They do it there. Ryan Williams has a question about your website. Maybe you
Sure.
could just say it or type it in.
Let me look it up really quick. I don't want to tell them the wrong URL. Would I be able to type it in the chat, or would it be better for me to just say it?
You can just say it. Like I said, I think that this
Okay.
is recorded, so they can go back and find it again. But
Okay, so you can find us at www.thc.texas.gov/historic sites/Levi Jordan Plantation.
okay. And William, you have a question from Kathleen Fraser, and you can read for yourself. But what or who do you find are most supportive with regard to expanding the narrative and making it inclusive, especially with the hard truths?
So it's really a community effort out here right now on the part of my site manager as well as my assistant site manager. They've really been very supportive in telling this story. So they've been, I want to say, my site manager has done every job you can do at a historic site. So he knows all the different roles you have to play in the system. So they've been very supportive in telling me how we can change. Because I'm one of those people who like to see change happen immediately, but it doesn't always work like that. So they've really been very supportive in helping me learn how historic preservation starts to work, as well as our African American Advisory Committee. So his name is Sam Collins. He's pretty much the leader of that group, and he's really been a great help, as well as our docents, Ms. Cheryl Macbeth, Ms. Meredith. They've all took me in under their wings. They've been dealing with the site longer than I have. So I just came in and learned the history, and really my site managers like to say the site chooses you. So I feel like even I've been guided by my ancestors as well too. So
Okay. So, if you don't mind me asking, I said, did that advisory group exist before you arrived, or is that something you helped put together, or how long has it been in existence to help the site?
Sure. So I believe they just came into fruition not because of me, but when they started talking about building the museum. So they wanted a professional group to come advise on what they feel that the museum should to hold and offer. So
Okay. And how often do you engage with the group? Is that the only group, or do you have other community groups that you work with?
we definitely have other community groups. Like I said, we're very familiar with a lot of the churches that have broken off from the Levi Jordan Plantation. So we try our best to meet with all of them. But with COVID, we've been very limited. And they're older people in the community, so they really don't get the whole virtual thing just yet. So we try to meet with them as much as we can. But we typically like to meet with that committee probably once a month. So.
Oh, okay. That's quite an active group.
Yes, ma'am. Definitely.
Okay. And so how did you make the leap from community? I see the connection, but community development to historic preservation. I mean, how did you sort of connect that in your own career and your own interests?
Right. So at Prairie View A&M University, I was in their community development program. You actually have to take cultural heritage and preservation. And it was taught by Professor Tiffany Thomas. And she actually she put that fire in me, I believe, to make me want to start exploring historic preservation, because I really didn't have too much interest in it at first, but after I took that class, it kind of lit a fire in me, and I went to a job fair that Prairie View was actually hosting, and I was about to leave, and I saw the Texas Historical Commission's table right by the door, and I just stopped by them right before I left. So I actually got an internship to be a part of their preservation scholar program. and I worked with the Main Street division, and I had so much fun doing that type of work. And they could tell that I was really enjoying it, that they offered me a full-time job. So I honestly just took it, and I'm so glad I did, because, like I said, it's never a day where I leave here without learning something new. So,
okay. Well, yeah, and so just out of curiosity, as a person who is obviously not a person of color, but as a leader in my own museum,
sure.
how would you suggest encouraging younger people to get involved? I mean, obviously you had a great professor, you had an interest in the community
Right.
aspect of it, but are there ways that you could advise people who might be interested in diversifying but don't know always what the most productive way is to do it, or
Right.
how to attract young people into a field? Like, history isn't always exciting for everybody. How would
Right.
you recommend doing that?
Well, we have to make it interesting, and I have to say that what we're into nowadays is really technology. So that's what we're even going for with our new museum, is to try to make it as technologically savvy as possible. So we really want to include a lot of technology with our new site to try to keep the youth interested. So another way, really, I feel you can diversify is just honestly is reaching out. A lot of the times people don't even we don't have any idea about the organization, or the organization doesn't have any idea about us, because we haven't even spoken yet. Like, I had no idea. I'm a native Houstonian. I lived in Texas my whole life. I had no idea the site was here my whole life until I actually got the job. So I really feel like just reaching out and talking really can solve a lot of those issues, and that's really the best way, is a word of mouth. So
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you.
yeah,
And I think we could all do that. Get to the local high
definitely.
schools or colleges and let people know what's going on. That's
Right.
so. Anyways, you have a question from Emily Almond. I missed the first part of the talk, so you may have already said this already. But how does the current interpretation highlight the labor done by enslaved persons and what their experience was like while the plantation was operating? How is that typically received by the visitor?
So we actually have a ghost structure. Well, not a ghost structure, but the ruins of our sugar mill is still intact. It was that, along with the enslaved quarters, was destroyed in the 1900s hurricane. So all we have left is the ruins, actually. But you can still see the brick foundation very clearly. And we actually have a whole cottage that's just strictly for the lives of the enslaved here on site. So if you come out and visit with us, you will see us. It talks about sugar production. I believe it actually has the slave schedules. Slaves were forced to work sun up to sundown. It highlights the amount that they produce, as well as we have, because of probate records, because of the pharmacist that was called out here on site, we have archival research of actually all the enslaved persons' names for the Varner Hogg plantation. So we actually have that displayed as well too. But like I said, we're still trying to work to expand that narrative. So it's not the best interpretation, but we're working to make that interpretation better. So and typically it's received by the visitors. It really just depends on which visitor that comes and visits with us, because some of our visitors will say, like you were saying earlier, the Civil War was because of states' rights, and other visitors will be in line with what we're trying to do now. So it really just depends on the visitor that you're getting in that day.
All right. Let's see. So, but it looks like the state is putting a lot of money. I mean, facilities like that are really, really impressive, and I think that's what some of the comments are really interested in. So, are you doing active archaeology on your site, or are you just asking people to bring something that they found? It sounds like it might be both.
Yes, we're actually doing both. So we have our assistant site manager is an archaeologist, as well as we will have an archaeologist over at Levi Jordan working with me as well too. So we're doing active archaeology, as well as asking descendants, as well as anybody in the community who may hold history that's relevant to the time, to bring that history out. So.
Okay, Joe is throwing you a little bit of a tough question here. Maybe you are in one of the bluest parts of Texas. How do you intend to play with the other parts of the state?
It's like I said, we're not trying to change the narrative, so we just want to expand on it. So just talking and hearing both sides, both perspectives. We're not discounting any parts of anybody's lives, but we just want both sides to hear, both sides of the story, because there's always two sides of each story. So we're just trying to expand that narrative, get people to start talking, and maybe work towards making our spaces sites for restorative justice. So not only that the African American population heal, but as well as our counterparts heal as well too, because it's trauma on both sides. So it's not just one-sided.
Okay. And it sounds like you said you've got teaching difficult topics for teachers, and that's
Yes.
going to be interesting. And the idea that you have dorms, I mean, I'll call them dorms. You said hotel rooms, so I don't mean to.
Well, they're actually dorm rooms as well too. So that's a good term for one.
Okay. So, so what is the intent behind the teaching difficult history? And I think it might be obvious, but if you just articulate what we are trying to accomplish, we've got about 9 minutes left. So.
Okay. So a lot of teachers, like I said, with this House bill, especially, don't know their safety net or what they can and can't say in the classroom. So we want to help them out by facilitating this program, so they feel more comfortable. Because we all know if you feel more comfortable about a topic, you'll dive a little deeper into it. But once you get uncomfortable, you might close up or you might shut off. So we're not trying to make them shut down in the classroom because they're uncomfortable about certain topics. We want them to just we're trying to facilitate that dialogue. So we really want to help teachers out because it's a lot of concerns, especially out in this area. Sweeney's they have their first African American superintendent, so he's been working hand in hand with us too as well, and he sees the issue, we see the issue, and a lot of the teachers, like I said, are very uncomfortable. So we're just trying to get them out of their comfort zone and then put them back in it, and give them the proper tools they need, so they can go in and if they get any negative feedback, they can dismantle that with what we teach them. So.
Okay. Well, and it sounds like, we all know that a lot of learning happens outside of the classroom. I mean, right. I'm sure your interaction would be great, but then have a chance to be social with each other, sort of decompress, right. And then have a conversation, casually.
And with the dorm rooms, it makes it a completely immersive experience. So that's why we're only going to make the program about a week, because it's a lot to take in when you come out here, because you're literally on an actual plantation. So a lot of people take it, one way, and a lot of people take it another. So we don't want to make it a too overwhelming experience. So we feel like that week and the week-long experience of you staying out here will actually, I feel like it'll change your perspective pretty quickly if you have a negative one or even want to just learn more. So.
Okay. Are you going to open it to just Texans, or are you going to start with that and maybe make it a broader program?
So we really want this to be an international thing. That's the whole idea behind making it. Making the dorm room, so you don't have to look for lodging when you want to come out to the program. You can just fly out here, and we already have your lodging covered. We'll have your food covered. Like I said, kitchen's in there, so it's going to be a completely immersive experience, and we want to enter everybody across the world, because slavery didn't only happen in America, Texas. It was a global thing. So, like I said, if we want to be a restorative justice site, we have to do things that can impact people on a global scale. So.
Okay. So your ambition is not small.
No, man, not at all.
Okay. All right. Well, I don't mean to make it sound like I was grilling you, but I'm really excited about what you're doing. I think it's going to be it's been so thoughtfully done and put together that I think it'd be a great experience when it's all done. And I look forward to seeing Joe go down there and stream, or tell us what's going on, and to myself to follow you and see what's happening. So I think we can end the stream now. Unless we get another question, but I wish you the best, William. You're obviously committed to your work.
Yes, ma'am. So. Thank you so much, Regina. And would you mind if I say my email to anybody who may want it right now?
No, please go ahead. You got a couple minutes. You might put in the website as well.
Okay. So my email address, if anybody would like to connect with me, is William, WILLIAM .Polley, POLLEY @thc.texas.gov.
Okay.
And our website, one more time, is www.thc.texas.gov/historic sites/Levi Jordan Plantation.
All right. I'll get it edited in. All right. So anyways, all right. Well, congratulations. It's been such a pleasure to meet you. And again, I wish you well. Thank you, William.
Thank you so much. Look forward to seeing you.
Okay. Bye-bye.